Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Please reach out to me directly. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com for pricing. Today, we're discussing a 2021 launch in stainless steel. This is the Rolex Oyster Perpetual Datejust Palm dial. Reference 126200. This is the latest generation 36 millimeter Rolex Datejust. It is 11.6 millimeters thick from lug tip to lug tip. The case is 43.5 millimeters, and from end link to end link, the total distance across the wrist is 45.3 millimeters with a 20 millimeter spacing between the lugs. We'll pop the watch open, throw it on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference, and get a look at how it fits. This is the original Datejust size from the model's launch in 1945. This is a sporty take on the Datejust, and we'll talk about why in a moment, but you can see it's flat enough that it easily slides underneath the cuff, and it's short enough across the wrist that I could recommend it for a wrist as small as 13 centimeters in circumference. Taking a look at the bracelet, this is one of the reasons I say it's a sporty take on the Datejust. We've got a steel case, a domed bezel, a loomed dial, and of course the Oyster bracelet. It's a big three-link design, typically seen on GMTs, Submariners, Yachtmasters and Yachtmaster 2s. Three-link design, burly links, polished outer faces, polished center, a little bit of taper, a conforming end link, polished centers, and removable links on both sides, fixed in place using screws. We have a beak and a hook internally, and we have this lift lock system, so you need to lift to unlock it. You can see how it's articulated right there. Internally, the clasp is of high polish. It's thick gauge steel. We have a clasp with a straight through polished top, polished flanks, satin shoulders. Internally, we have the Easy Link tool-free adjustment system. It's the equivalent of adding or removing one full-sized link, so it's 5 millimeters in, 5 millimeters out. You can see that there are little divots drilled inside the clasp. There's 3 of them. So there's a spring bar in there, and you can use your strap tool to change the anchoring point of the bracelet for better fit. Now the case is tapered, voluptuous, gracefully curved. It's all of high polish with narrow teardrop arced lug profiles, and I should mention that it is 100 meters water resistant with a screw down twin lock crown. Rolex makes its own dials, cases, clasps, and bracelets, and it makes a lot of its own alloys. It uses 904L steel, and this is an uncommon steel, not unheard of, but uncommon in watchmaking. It's not necessarily harder, but what it is more resistant to corrosion. So for example, after exposure to certain acids or even sweat or seawater, you don't need to rinse it. 316 steel is not quite as resilient. It can actually start to corrode after continuous exposure to salt water. Not so with 904L. We have a domed bezel, which gives this watch a little bit of an Oyster Perpetual look. It looks like the old bubble backs and the modern Oyster Perpetuals. We're more used to seeing conical steel bezels and fluted gold bezels on Datejusts. The dial has a lovely metallic pattern in green showing a palm background, and atop that verdant base you have white gold hands, crown, and indices. White golds, they will not discolor or oxidize over time. The watch is well loomed with Rolex's proprietary Chromolite blue luminescent paint. We have a Cyclops eye magnifier. And then inside the case, we have Rolex manufactured caliber 3235. Bidirectional automatic winding. It exchanges the 3135's old jeweled staff rotor for a rotor bearing that makes it more shock tolerant. It has a 70-hour power reserve. It has a quick set, as well as hacking seconds, pivots on 31 jewels, beats weight 8 beats per second. For shock tolerance, it has a free sprung balance and a full balance bridge. It uses a handmade overcoil hairspring, the better to keep excellent time in every position on the wrist or your dresser at night. And that hairspring is made of a blue oxidized niobium zirconium that is highly anti-magnetic. Rolex calls that parachrome blue. Now the watch also, as a bare movement, goes through the COSC test as a chronometer. Rolex takes the chronometer certified movement, cases it up, and then times it in 6 positions rather than the chronometer 5, assuring that before it leaves the factory, the watch, the full watch, will run no worse than -2 plus 2 seconds per 24 hours. That is the basis for that term superlative chronometer on the dial. Reach out to tmosso@thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.